Good morning, everyone. So I just did like a quick reading on my stories on Instagram, and I I got a reply from someone just saying that like the combination of the decks I used was really intense and in a good way. So I wanted to come on and talk about all my Oracle decks that I have, and I just wanted to talk about like how I use them, when I use them, and what the imagery does for me. And yeah, I'll talk more about that. But I do not have a lot of tarot or oracle at all, in comparison to some of my friends or the people I follow who have like hundreds of decks. I'm not a collector. I really am very limited. And please don't get me wrong, I wish I had the resource for that, or even just the patience to collect all of those decks and hunt them down. I would love to have that. It's just not where I am right now. So anyway, um, I've got one, two, three, four, five, six, seven Oracle decks and a tarot that I sometimes use as an Oracle. But this is it. This is my Oracle collection. So I wanted to dive in and talk about each deck. It's a mess right now. I'm still figuring this YouTube thing out, but we're getting there, I guess. So maybe I will start from the first Oracle deck that I ever picked up. I'll set these other ones aside. I bet you can see them in frame. I don't really care at this point. Um, so let us talk about my first ever, well, no, it's not my first ever one. I rehoned my first ever one, which was the Work Your Light Oracle. It was beautiful, but it served its time with me. So this is my oldest Oracle deck that I have in my collection. This is the Wild Unknown Archetypes with the amazing guidebook by Kim Krantz. This is, I believe, a collage deck with like collage and drawing deck. And it's circular and it's beautiful and it has all these archetypes. And the imagery is pretty intense, pretty dark. I mean, look at that, the venom with like the fangs, the moon. I mean, I love it. There's some sweet, I wouldn't say sweet. Okay, there's some like feminine imagery. There is that, the cat with a clown hat, the comic. But for the most part, this deck is really intense. I'm not even doing a great job of showing off the cards, am I? And I used this a lot when I was trying to get into exploring my shadow more. And shadow work is a term that was coined by Carl Jung, I believe. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but it is not. Some people, when they hear shadow work, they're really, really freaked out by that. It doesn't have to be mystical if that's not your thing. But shadow work is basically looking at the parts of yourself that you keep in the dark, in the shadow. And that's simplistic, but that's how I see it. So I would use this deck actually on its own when I first started. I have used this in combination with decks that I would say are a little bit more traditional in terms of imagery. So, for example, the Terra Volatile. I have used this with the Sasarai Beto, and I love it actually because the Sasarai Beto tarot is, it's very like simple art style, drawing style. It's almost like cartoonish, but it's so raw as well that it worked really well with this deck. So I have used it in combination with other oracles as well, but I didn't really feel like it needed that because you have so much in the guidebook. You have, for example, you have keywords, you have a description, you have a when light meaning, when dark meaning, and then a suggestion for go deeper, which could be reading a poem from another reference, it could be watching something, it could be an art piece, and then you would still have all these other suggestions. And what did I put in the storm? did I put in the storm? I think there was a suggestion for a poem here, or it was just a poem that I had found that I felt related to the storm so much. So I have these little notes in the guidebook from where I did do the suggestions to go deeper, or when I found something that I really, really resonated with, and then it's built my relationship. So I have all these little notes. It's built my relationship with the deck, and it's not a deck that I use lightly because I feel like it requires me to have the time and the space to go really, really deep. So that is the Wild Unknown Archetypes guidebook. Oh, sorry, guidebook and deck. And I'm not gonna read from it because it's just so intense. And I really don't have the capacity for that now. I want this to be a very quick for me show and tell. Anyway, the next oracle deck that I have, as far as like, I guess, I wanted to say age, as far as how long it's been in my collection, is the Wisdom of the Shadow. This is a beautiful deck. It also comes with a wonderful guidebook. So let's talk about the guidebook really quick. Each card has like 2 pages. It's the card, it's the name of the art piece, which is all done by the artist. So these are all paintings. And then an affirmation or a saying, a quick sort of stream of consciousness description, and then a more traditional sort of description discussion on the card. Then there are contemplations, so questions that you can ask yourself, and then a ritual, which I really love. You could do the ritual, you could choose not to. This one, it says boiling water and gathering herbs for a tea infusion. So for example, if I had soul care, I would flip to soul care. I know I'm going, like I'm talking really fast. I feel like I'm talking really fast. The ritual would be gather an eye covering, towel or scarf, lay on your back, get comfortable, cover your eyes, bring awareness to your breath, ask your soul self to speak through you. So there's a lot of like somatic practices that I really love in this deck. And the artwork for this is what I'd like to call, some of it, not all of it, I'd like to call it rage art. I think that is a term that is used as well. Some of this is really like, it's heavy, but it's at the same time not heavy in its art. For example, you know, the tones that are used are more yellows, more calming blues. Then you have art like this where it's like fire energy, really strong, raw energy. And I love it so much. But how I did this actually is when I first started using this deck, I decided I would do a card a day. And I think there are like 44 cards in here. Yeah, 44 cards. And then I would pull whatever tarot that I felt would go with it. And I think I matched this a lot with the Lubanco because it's got a very similar aesthetic. The Lubanco and the Terra Volatile. I have also matched this with the Lonely Dreamer as a balance, like as a counterpart. So I definitely went through this deck when I had access to this kind of raw emotion. I was in the beginning of my therapy journey, or at least the beginning of a specific part of my therapy journey, and I wanted to feel everything. I just wanted to feel all the sadness, all the anger, all the pain. I wanted to strip myself open. I wanted to look at all the ugly parts. Like, look at this. Expectations. It says, my dear, you are loved. It's a hand reaching out to comfort this being where there are other hands like almost punching through the body saying, not good enough, work harder. And you have all these arrows that are going into the brain, and then you're working her to death. That's silly. She's doing the best she can. Wouldn't you like to get to know her better? So it's like energy coming here that wants to comfort you, and energy here that is taking you to very dark places. I mean, right? It feels like you see the snake Like the rage that is coming out of her is actually a snake in the pit of her stomach. It's so, so raw. I love working with this oracle deck. You don't see it as often on my feed just because it's so very intense, but I don't believe I will ever let it go. Never say never, but I don't believe I will. I love it so much. And the creators also have another deck called Wisdom of the Divine Feminine. Beautiful backs, by the way. And to me, that is more of a shadow deck because I have trouble accessing my Divine Feminine and the softer parts of me. I almost feel more comfortable with the shadow side than I do with the lighter side of me. So this is the Wisdom of the Shadow. Let's set that aside. For now, I'm trying to fix stuff as I go, so bear with me. I don't want there to be like a giant mess. Plus, I do have OCD, so that does work out in expressing itself there. Then the next oracle that I want to talk about is the Align. The Align Heart Affirmations Oracle. I backed the new version, so I will be looking to rehome this eventually or gift it. Let's see. Now, I am not a person that likes pastels, that likes cute little graphics. I don't have a lot of decks like that. In fact, Marine on the Waves of Your Soul, when she did a deck exchange with me, she sent me the Happy Tarot because she was like, girl, you need a little lightness in your tarot collection. She was not wrong. But the sayings on these cards are so potent and they're delivered in such a cute way that it's almost like listening to someone. It's like listening to our cartoon tell you that you fucked up or that you are in deep shit, and it somehow delivers the message in a gentler way and I can receive it in a gentler way. So I love this. I will pair this deck actually with like a heavier hitting deck like the Lubanco or the Terra Volatile or the Sassari Beetle. I'm trying to look at my collection, or the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum, simply because I want the hard hittingness of the message, but I want to temper it a little bit or sandwich it in cuteness. So, for example, the ill intent I see in others is a reflection of the shame I feel towards myself. Now, if this message was on a card with the art of the Wisdom of the Shadow, it would be just too much for me. I wouldn't be able to handle it. But it's on these wonderful little cards with holographic hearts. And it says, I harm myself when I try so hard to be good at the cost of my authenticity and mental health. I mean, it's wild. And then it has, let me just see, you have nothing to prove. I did the best I could with the wisdom and awareness that I had at the time. I forgive myself for being the person I've been in order to survive. Now, the different colors are different categories. So there's self-healing, there's reminders, there's cards for moving forward, there's cards for connection. It's really, really beautiful. It's so well done. And I am excited to get the new edition where the text is in black and the color of the cards are a little darker so that the text pops out more. So I will pair this mostly with darker decks. You would think I wouldn't. I've tried to pair it with lighter decks before and they just don't seem to work for me as much. So I do pair that with darker decks. And then I have sort of an all-rounder that I can use for literally for anything. This is the Divining Poets Lucille Clifton card deck. Now, the Divining Poets is a series of poetry-based decks. I think there are 5 card decks available right now. It's done by Turtle Point Press, and they pick a poet or a writer, and they do 78 oracle cards with quotes from their work. And it's totally out of like context. It doesn't reference the poem, but it does inspire you to sort of go through the collection. how beautiful the backs are. And now I own a book with Lucille Clifton's poems, which I love. You could use it on its own. You know how dangerous it is to wear dark skin. Or you could search this line and find the original poem and read the whole thing. I do use it in both ways. I use it as an oracle. I pair it with literally any deck, except maybe the Heartscape. I don't pair it with the Heartscape, but every other deck I have. As possible as yeast, as imminent as bread. Water will come again if you can wait for it. Less certain than I seem, more certain than I was. Any stone can sing. Oh, I love this. I think this is a poem. She has a series of poems about Clark Kent and Superman. Well, that's the theme. Or at least that's the guiding device that she uses. But it talks about there is no planet stranger than the one I'm from. I don't know if it's in relation to that poem, but I think it is. I have learned to carry it the way a poor man learns to carry everything. I am the bush, I am burning, I am not consumed. It is the life thing in us that will not let us die. Worlds buzz over us like bees. I mean, you just could go on. It's so beautiful, it's so simple. And if you are a fan of poetry and you are a fan of just impactful words, because that's what poets do, right? Like they put into a few sentences the feelings and emotions that I would need whole paragraphs to explore. And I love this deck. I love this deck so much. Words tumbling together up the long stair home. I first saw it on Free the Uglies channel. I think she has a YouTube channel and an Instagram account. And it's just amazing. I don't know where I put the oh, I'm so out of it. Like I don't know where I put the boxes. And it comes with a little stand if you would like to use it. So I believe the only thing is this is not magnetic. If you put it this way, it will open up and spill out. So you kind of have to set it down this way. And then the next Oracle deck that I want to talk about is my Reclaim, my beloved Reclaim Oracle 3rd edition. This deck I had been hemming and hawing over getting, and then I was like, I don't really vibe with the imagery. Like, what are these creatures? They're all pink. I'm not a pink person. Why do they have horns? Why do they have tails and several arms? And I just got hung up on this stuff. And I was so can I just say it, I was stupid for getting hung up on that stuff. Like I was really like, is that the thing that stopped me from going and getting this deck? Because that's why. This is so raw. I use it aesthetically with any sort of deck that has a black border, a black background, but I have also used this. The two most used decks that I've used this with is the Lubanco, because it really is intense when you pair them together, and the Heartscape, because the Heartscape is kind of the opposite of the Lubanco. But I find that this imagery works really well. I also have used this with Oracle decks. So if I just do an all Oracle, all affirmation reading, I have used this with the Align, and I use this with From Roots to Blooms, which is another Oracle deck that I will discuss in a bit. But it is beautiful. Look at that. It's so simple. Insecurity. This being is standing on their tippy toes on a pyramid, and it's so unstable. And if you are trying to find validation somewhere, like if you're pretending like everything is okay, but this is an insecurity for you, it does feel like this. Defeat, like you've stopped in the middle of the stairs and it's all cracked and broken, and you have these figures around you either trying to help you get up or keeping you down. Fear, I mean, imagery alone would have been enough. However, the star of this is the guidebook. Like I just need to read from one of the entries that made me buy this deck, and it's the rejection card. And I don't know if you can see because I can't look through this. There are a lot of cards right now. Rejection is painful because of what it makes me do. When you say no to what I am, when you say no to what I feel, I am forced to discard the part of me that doesn't fit in your perfect picture. I lose myself to remain close to you. I become afraid that the whole of me will never be enough for you. That guidebook, this deck has made me cry the most out of every other deck that I have owned. It really has. It's so beautiful, and it's so... I come to this when I feel numb. I come to this to be able to feel something. This and the wisdom of the shadow. When I want my subconscious to connect because it has been feeling disconnected. And I want to explain that. I'm going to put the wisdom of the shadow back up. So there's no format to this at all. So I do want to explain why I come to these decks when I do. As a survivor of trauma, and having had myself just sort of be activated most of my life in that trauma, before I learned to reset my nervous system, before I learned to ground, I had been most comfortable with feeling something, either an extreme high or an extreme low. I'm fine as long as I feel. However, when I get numb, or let's say when I get neutral, and it's been a couple of weeks and I've been in this neutral state, I'm still getting used to that. It feels super uncomfortable. It feels like, no, something needs to be wrong or something needs to be extremely right. And I don't want to always be activated either in a extreme directions. I want to be able to come back to neutral and have that be an okay thing. But when it gets to the point where my skin is literally itching because I'm I can't shake it, I'm just too numb, I'm too disconnected, I'm too neutral, I come to these decks to elicit some sort of reaction from my subconscious, even for just 5 minutes, and then I can come back to neutral. And I don't know if that makes any sense. I suspect it would to some people. But that's why I come to these decks. I don't think I've ever paired them together. Oh my god, just thinking about it, I'm kind of that's a bit much. But I might try. Okay, we're almost done. Just 3 more decks to go. God, this is so long. And then I have the Oracle d'Or. This is a oracle deck based on the noirs of Odilon Redon, a French painter. How beautiful. I have a feeling only for shadows. And then it says, black is the most essential of all colors, Odilon Redon. Comes with a little gold book, but it also has a companion book that I did purchase. It is rose petal finish with foiling, but it does shuffle really well. I usually hate rose petal, and I love this. Now, this is a very dreamy, kind of nightmarish deck. I, for the most part, have exclusively used this with the Lonely Dreamer Tarot, which is by the same creator and is also based on the work of Odilon Redon. And it's a very beautiful counterpart. The Lonely Dreamer is using artwork from Odilon Redon when he started doing color. But before he started doing color, he did Mars. So you have these beautiful, beautiful artworks. And the companion book talks about what the art is. So I love it so much. I get to look up, I get to learn about art, I get to learn about Redon's influences. So the writer of the companion book is not the same as the creator of the deck. The writer is Tara Matthews. It's Tara Tackett on Instagram. She is so very sweet and kind. And as I was going through this deck, was so very helpful. I reached out to her and it was just so lovely. The interaction was so lovely. But this is definitely, you'll see obsession, you will see the word eclipse. Sometimes the keywords are difficult. Lenore from the, I think it's from the Edgar Allan Poe story, because Redon did some artwork for some of Edgar Allan Poe's works, I believe. You have expansion, you have ore, you have liminality, you have the cloud, introspection, the wheel. It's just so beautiful. Futility, and you have the Pegasus, felineness, which talks about female sensuality. So the guidebook is definitely essential to this because it's very symbolic. It's not keywords that you would be like, okay, I get what that means. This is Quasimodo. There is one here that says Caliban, I think. So it's really not, or it uses the artwork called Caliban. The spider, the bridge, perspective, the Sphinx, fantasy, vision. I mean, beautiful persona. So it's not something that I use without the book. And maybe if I used it more, I would have like a, what do you call it? Like just an automatic recollection of what the meanings are, but there's so much depth to it. Depth to it. Excuse me. And then the newest oracle deck to my collection, or affirmation deck, or whatever, it's From Roots to Blooms. Oh, hi, let's explore you from Roots to Blooms. You have seen this on my Instagram and on most of my YouTube videos. I only have a few. So this is my most recent deck, and it is fantastic. It's got cards that sort of express the root of who you are, and cards that express what you show to others, which would be the blooms, and then cards that are more focused on the elements. But I love how this is not about toxic positivity. It's not about affirmations that are like light and love. And even the ones that seem light and love, when you go into the guidebook, it's so well done. Your sensuality is sacred, not shameful. I love that. Perspective. I love this too. If it's heavy, put it down, even if only for a bit. Acknowledge your fears. Find your boundaries and hold them. It's okay living a life that others don't get. You don't need to be stressed and busy to be valuable. Whose expectations are you judging yourself against? I mean, need I say more? And also in the guidebook, there are questions for each of the Roots and Blooms card. So I do love that so much. And then finally, honorable mention. This is a tarot deck that I have used as an oracle and a tarot. So I did back this on Kickstarter, one of two that I have backed on Kickstarter. It does come with this little book, but you could also get the companion book, which I did get. I wish the companion book had talked more about the history of the particular symbolism in the emblems, but not so much. Oh, by the way, this is Tarot Emblemata Chromata. It did come with several oracle cards. I forget how many, but maybe 10. This is a deck based on historical emblems, Renaissance emblems, and then this is the second version of the deck. The first version was just black and gold, and now this is colored. And then you have an emblem that really did exist in the Renaissance, and then the Latin motto above it, and then an English translation. So because of the sayings on top, I can use it as an oracle, and because it's so simple, it is an emblem, I do tend to use it to clarify tarot if I am confused. So what I will do is I'll pull the tarot cards out. If I see that there's a Four of Swords, I will then look for the Four of Swords here. I'll put it down. Let's say I'm looking for the Three of Wands. I pulled it from the Tarot Aphrodite, and I'll pick it up here. Appearing together upon the sea, a sign of good luck. And then I will look up the meaning of that. Some of these are more direct. Riches are to be desired that we may give to others. The Six of Pentacles, right? Like, beautiful. Ten of Swords, dead end, betrayal, tragedy, defeat of spirit. The lovers together and forever. Ace of Swords, the power of intellect and clarity. Seven of Swords, the snake lurks in the grass. So this is, it lends itself to a lot of use, actually, and I love it so much. And there's something about the vibe of this deck, you know, just that the fact that people were using this imagery. I don't know what it is, in different ways, not just in tarot, but the symmetry, how they were paired together is so, it's masterful. I love the Judgment card. It's given me a new take on judgment. It is neither law nor can be, I suppose. So amazing. All right. Those are my oracle decks. Thank you for joining me. And as always, take care. Bye.